Hey, welcome to my channel, Late Bloomer to Life. My name is Marina, and this is where I share my experience of blooming later in life. I am 40 years old, and the past 6 months, I've decided to share how my experience has been discovering this new part of my life, this new way in which I have finally bloomed. So I'm here sharing with you today a new series that I hope you enjoy, and if you do, make sure to keep following this channel, Late Bloomer to Life. You can also go check me out. What am I talking about? It's just me. Go check me out on TikTok at Late Bloomer to Life, and also make sure to comment this, share, let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to hear from you. But this new series is a panel. It's a conversation that I've started having with different creators who, like me, have bloomed later in life. I host these live on TikTok. You're welcome to join there too, or just wait around so you can watch them at your own time here on my channel. Make sure to give a follow, let me know your thoughts, and enjoy this discussion. So today's guest for our panel on blooming later in life, got the opportunity to talk with two creators that I have been following for the past 6 months and have enjoyed immensely learning all about their lives. Our first guest is unapologetically me, 11, Carrie. Her story is beautiful, and I hope you get to stick around so you can listen to her sharing. And the other guest that I got to talk to was Jill from Ask Queer Abby. Also wonderful, wonderful creator. Loved getting to hear more about her story. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And again, make sure to follow all three of us if you enjoyed this, and tune in for more panels like this. I don't know if everybody here knows everybody's story, but I thought it'd be fun if we actually started telling a little bit about ourselves. You know, all the things that we share on our fun pages. Just like a quick, like the TikTok 1-minute version of your story, whatever part of it that you'd like to share now. Let's start with that. Winter gardens in the house.
You want me to go first, Jill?
All right. This is where she is for me.
And this is my first live, by the way. I've never done this. So it's all.
Oh, that's so fun.
I know. Maybe I'll do it more. My story. So I came out, it's been a little over 1.5 years ago now. I was married to a man for 7 years, had kids with him, had only exclusively dated men prior to that. And during the pandemic, started to kind of do some self-introspection and started to finally admit to myself that I am actually gay. So I came out to my husband at the time, moved out a few months later. We have a really good co-parenting relationship, and we do that with our 2 kids. And I came out publicly. That was about 1 year ago. I think it was July 1st. And so this is I've wanted to come on to TikTok. I didn't actually join until after the fact. I know a lot of people join TikTok and then find out they're gay. That's not my story. But I kind of feel like I was called to share my story, because when I was coming out, I was looking for others that might be going through this, because it was really hard to go through alone. So as hard as it is, I try and share what I'm going through in the moment and what I went through then to, help others who might be going through the same thing. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. I remember the first time, I don't know if we joined around the same time, but I feel so. Like, yeah, because I feel like we were one of the first videos that kept showing up, and I was like, wait, that's exactly my story too. I was like, what are the chances?
I know, it happened moment of like having this like long distance friend. I was like, oh, it's my buddy, and she gets it.
Yeah. I know. So it's like that's been the past 6 months basically. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny how much overlap there is in all 3 of our stories, and I'm sure a lot of people who may be on here as well or who follow us. Because so July 3rd was my self-love anniversary.
Oh,
it was 3 years of when I came out to myself in therapy and could finally like love and accept the fact that I was a lesbian. Um, Several months later, I came out to my husband. We had been together for almost 20 years. He was the one and only guy I had ever dated. My mom picked him
oh
out, and I
wow.
was like, yeah, he seems like a good guy. But we were best friends. He's super cool. He's a great guy. So it was really, a heartbreaking decision to make, but we realized that the most fair thing to do for both of us was to be allowed to live and love someone else fully and completely. It wasn't fair to him that he wasn't receiving love fully, and that I couldn't give love fully. So, 2 kids that were homeschooled at the time. We ran a small business together. I mean, life was
Wow.
wild. So it was a big upheaval to
And
finally
20
say,
years is, yeah.
yeah, it was a lot. So, but yeah, so we still co-parent, and we have our ups and downs, but in the scheme of things, we always make the kids a priority. And so that's going well. And in the meantime, I had some frustration with online dating. And just as I was about to delete the app, I found the love of my life. And so we've been together like, oh gosh, over 2 years now. Long distance relationship. But
The whole time?
yes.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
We should be celebrating our 5-year wedding anniversary right now. But yeah, so I don't know if she's on here or not, but hi, Jen, if you're on here.
Oh,
And yeah, and so life has been really good since coming out. Like there's nothing that feels better than the truth. And one of those great things was that I wrote my story and Hay House Publishing ended up picking it up. And it's going to be a book that comes out for Lesbian Visibility Week next year. And so I think it will share a lot of what we all have in common in our story, that there's very much kind of a process almost that we go through in coming out, and a lot of similar feelings and things like that. So.
I remember when you did your post announcing that you got the book deal. I was so excited. It was kind of like, oh, this other random friend that I made on the interwebs that has the same story. I'm like, oh, that's so cool that she got a book deal.
Crazy.
That's awesome. And I was looking at the comments. Mr. Stonerman, you're awesome. He's always in my lives. He's great. You guys don't need to worry about him. He's just having, I don't know, but he's awesome. So yeah, like my story aligns up with a lot of your stories too. I was always dating men, my entire life, thought that was what I was supposed to do. Always was attracted to women, and I've realized that that's not a thing that all straight women think. I just thought that all straight women did. That was definitely a later realization. I'm like, oh, we don't all want to kiss each other? That's very interesting. Yeah. I know. It turns out that straight women don't. So, married because thought that that's what I was supposed to do. And then the marriage, me coming out actually had nothing to do with the end of my marriage. It was just the marriage. I mean, if I think about it in terms of who I am, probably now I understand that had a lot to do with why the marriage, wasn't working. But yeah, after marriage for 14 years, we decided that, I decided, and then eventually we decided that it wasn't working. That was about 4 years ago. And then in therapy, also, it was just one of those moments where I'm just like, I just can't do this. And I just had this fixation. I was like, I don't want to bring another man in my life. I just knew I didn't want to bring a man into my home. Like it just wasn't, I knew it wasn't my thing. And then my therapist just very nonchalantly, she was like, well, what about women? And I'm like, oh, what about women? And it was just kind of this light bulb that went off for me. And then I have that weird, like in that couple, I went on a few dates and then did the online dating and went on a few dates. And then in probably a month in it, I met the love of my life. And So that happened all really fast, and that was in the last year or so. So Brianna was in the other room, moderating over here. And we've been together, and it's been great. So thanks for sharing all of the stories. Marie, you were raised in the church, got married, and came out 10 years later at 40. It's been a journey. Welcome. And that's, I think, the other thing about us. I'm 40. Carrie, you're what, 40? I can't remember. 42. And then
41.
Jill. Look at us. So we're like the 40s club that came out later.
So if you're approaching 40, watch out. Yeah. It's about to get gay up in here. So there are some straight women. Apparently they exist.
I wonder how much the pandemic had to do with everyone kind of realizing, a lot of self-reflection.
I'm not sure, but I will say that coming out, and especially doing so publicly, I was amazed at how many people reached out to me privately to say, I'm also part of the community. People just don't realize it because either they're bisexual or pansexual or asexual, or in a hetero-facing relationship, or are LGBTQ but consider themselves closeted. And it's like, the closet is huge. It is a very full place. And so in some ways I love that, in that I feel less alone, or less like this is not something normal. And in some ways it makes me sad that we're still not there society-wise, that people feel that they can just be themselves safely and comfortably.
Yeah. I wonder how, comparatively, I wonder if we had come out in our teens, which that was for all of us, the 90s, right? Like, what were the 90s then compared to now in terms of the, how accepting it is, and how many closeted people were back in the 90s compared to now. I don't know. Sometimes I go deep in that.
No, I think about that a lot too. I have a niece who is in college, and just even watching her experiences through high school and just seeing the fluidity of sexuality among her friends and how that's just what she's grown up with. And that's not what I experienced in the 90s. It's like the little tinges that would come up in me, I knew enough. I didn't know what it was, but I knew enough to know it wasn't normal and to push it down because I didn't have that representation, and it's different now. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better. I think there's more opportunity for people to see themselves in others.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I saw we just got a comment that says the 90s wasn't very accepted, and I know my own partner, she came out in her teens, in kind of a rural town, and we talk often about how very different our experiences have been, and how we show up differently in the queer community because of when we came out and how we were received.
Yeah. So I had, in one of my posts, actually a few people have said things about this. I did a PDA post that got a lot of buzz where people were talking about baby gays. It's another term that people use for us, right? When we date women that have been out for most of their life, there's a way, the way that we are publicly and how affectionate we are, they might not be as comfortable with it because they've had different experiences their entire life of being accepting or not. And how do you navigate that? So I don't know if you, Jill, have experienced that, or Carrie, you didn't talk much about baking, but have you guys experienced any of that?
Oh yeah. If Jen is on, Jenny, I know you're on here right now, and she's probably nodding her head because I am it's funny. I would always, my whole life, I was like, I'm just not a PDA type of person. I'm not that type of person. I was like, no, because you're freaking gay. That's why. Exactly. And so now that I am such a love bug. I always want to be holding her hand or kissing her cheek or whatever. And that is just not, she's not always the same way out in person. Not that it's a bad thing. I mean, I understand too, sometimes it's safer not to be. And I don't want to say it too, because I know we made a pact with each other that we're just going to do us. We're just going to live us and be who we are. And that's how we're going to start seeing the changes in society too, is like be part of the normalization process and not feel like we have to hide. But there's definitely been some times where like I'll see her give a quick glance around before I hold her hand, and I was like, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. It's a really I don't know. And also, when do we stop being baby gays though? Like really?
I don't know.
I read something that it's like a year after being out, but it doesn't feel like it. And I hate that term so much. But I know it describes, like, people get it, but I hate it.
Well, my thing about it is like, and I've talked about this, like, when do we say that we came out, right? Like, Jill, you said like July 3rd was kind of your anniversary of that, right? But I don't necessarily know, because for me, like, coming out was like a slow process, right? And the last like big moment of coming out for me was like 8 months later after I knew, and it was coming out to my kid, right? It was like having, and it wasn't necessarily, actually I came out to her earlier, but telling her I was in a relationship, like it. So like, is that my date, or was that the first time that I was like, sure, I'll flip my Bumble to women and see what happens? Is that my coming out? Like, what's that date? Like, how do I know? So then what would my year mark be?
Yeah, and I think only you can answer that. And I think the other thing that's been interesting, like, I had this naive concept that you come out and that's it. And it's like, oh, I'll be coming out for the rest of my life, sometimes daily, multiple times a day. That's been interesting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Is July 3rd kind of, you said was that the date of you?
That I only came out to myself on that day. So I had actually come out 6 years prior in therapy, in a different therapy session. However, I didn't realize that the therapist wasn't affirming. And so she finished the session by saying that you're confused about your feelings towards women. Sometimes we just feel that way about our friends. And she said, you made a commitment to a man and you need to honor that commitment. And I know now, looking back on it, I'm like, Jill, that's so dumb. Why did you listen to her? But I was such a perfectionist and such a people pleaser that when she said, you need to work harder, I thought, well, that's it. That's what's wrong in our marriage. I'm not working hard enough. I need to try harder, even though I knew what my attraction was at that point. So I do consider the July 3rd to be my coming out date, even though it was just between me and the therapist at that point, because that's when I really accepted my identity and felt love for myself. But it was months before I came out to my husband, and then a few months later until we came out to our children. We wanted to go through the holidays together. And then I made a giant Facebook declaration with a video of the first chapter of my book, even though I didn't have any other. It was the only chapter of my book too, but I was like, I wrote a book. Here's the first chapter. And that was on my 40th birthday. Then that was public on Facebook, and I made a lot of friends and I lost a lot of family on that day. So I mean, I celebrate because it's my birthday, but I don't. Long story short, you get to pick the day that sits best in your heart and celebrate that. So I celebrate my self-love.
Got it. Do you have a moment, like Carrie, like a date, a moment or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's when I came out to my husband. It was January of last year. So, I mean, it's a similar story to where I came out to him, and then it was like 6 months later that I came out on Facebook with a large declaration. I came out to my sisters and parents and some close friends pretty soon after I came out to him. For the kids, so I actually have 2 kids with him, and I have 2 stepsons that are older. My kids are little, they're 3 and 5, so telling them is a little different. It's kind of more just getting them used to the idea. But with the boys, they're twin boys, they're 13. And we waited until it was about the fall, I think, that we told them. Because for us, we really wanted them to see that we have a strong relationship. And so there's things there that aren't going to change for them before they had to dig into that. I mean, they're just they're still such young kids too, as far as sexuality is concerned, and they're figuring that all out from themselves, that, we didn't want to jump in with, we're getting divorced, she's moving out, and this, so we waited till it felt like it was time, and they handled it great. I think I was more scared than anyone. But so there's like those 3 different large milestones of coming out, and that last one was the one that felt like, okay, that's it. And I know there's tons more coming out that I will do in my life, but it's those. And I think it all just kind of began with coming out to my husband. And so January, I don't have like an exact date, but I just know it was around then.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. And I don't think we announced it or said, but if anybody has questions that you want to put in the comments, I'm trying to pay attention to the comments. Sometimes they go too fast, but if you guys see any questions on there too, feel free to, bring them up. I would just I can keep also asking because I was really excited about this. And I keep thinking about, I've gotten questions on my pages and you guys have too. One of the questions that I've gotten multiple times is, when did you know you were ready to date women? That has shown up on in some shape or form, reworded in many different ways. But when did you know that you were ready?
I'm just laughing over here because I'm like, am I ready still?
Okay, then there you go. Please, let's go with that take.
Well, I gave myself like a good 9 months before I got on any apps. Like, I needed to figure out some of my own shit first. Like, it's a lot, right? And I needed to just like figure out what my life looked like having another place and with the kids and co-parenting. And so I joined an app about November-ish of last year and started dating. And of course, like in true fashion, I think of most people coming out later in life, I started dating somebody who had all the red flags and just kind of blew past all of that and just didn't go great. But, it was short-lived, and I just had a few different situationships, I guess, like that similarly. Yet in the same time, there's a few, failed dates that have become really good friends. So I'm thankful for that. I'm single right now, but I am reluctantly dating. It's just like apps are so rough, right? And it's just like, I wish I could meet someone organically, but that's tough, right? Like, we're still in COVID times and I work from home most days. So it's like I actually have to get out in public.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, I do think it was fine that I started dating. I kind of needed to go through some of those poor, blowing through the red flags and such to see and to really learn what I want and how I value myself in a relationship. And I think I'm a totally different person now than I was then. And again, naively thought it was going to be this like really easy thing, dating women. And it's like, the truth is there's just as many toxic patterns in this community as there is with males. And I'm learning that. So I'm cautiously still dating, but I think I'm in a better situation as far as knowing what I want. But I question it all the time. I'm like, let's delete these apps right now, and then I'll get back on. And then,
How many times have you deleted it?
I feel that.
But your stories give me hope. So
yeah, Carrie, it was literally when I was about to delete the app, and then Jen's face popped up, and I was like, just delete, don't. And I was like, okay, just one more picture. And I swiped to the next picture, and she had on a Buffalo Bills hat, and I'm from Buffalo. And I was like, it's destiny. We're meant to be. I'm going to marry her.
I love it.
But really, like, I feel what you're saying. Like, oh my gosh, the dating is so hard. And then I think especially when or at least I found, like, starting to date women and dating later in life or in midlife or whatever you want to call it, like, I was so convinced that the dating pool was so small and I wouldn't have many options anyways, that I just kind of had to take whatever came across my plate. And so I overlooked a lot of red flags because I was like, well, I guess this is dating. I guess this is what I deserve. I still had a lot of feelings of guilt too, of like, this is as this is what I get. And not to say that they were bad people, we were not good matches for each other. We weren't not bringing out the best in each other. And so, yeah, had some bad dating situations. And it got me to the point where I had to go, what is it that I really want out of a relationship? And use that as my bar then for kind of deciding. And kindness was the biggest thing. I was like, how was I overlooking kindness?
That's an important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
or just for me, I had this, it's so fun how we like have our different stories, and I hope like people can relate, right? Because for me, when, you know, my marriage ended, the last date I went on, I was 20, I think. So then my marriage ended, I'm 37, and I was like, oh, I got to do this again and figure this all out again. So I went on dates with men. So my like experience dating again and with dating apps and all of that was with men first. And I went on a few dates and actually, you know, dated a few men, and I like met some great men and realized like 2.5, you know, years in, I was like, wait, I'm meeting all of these really great men, because I've always thought dating was fun back in college and high school. I would always go on dates, and I'm like, sure, I have no problem going on dates. But then, you know, as an adult and realizing that like these dates are supposed to be like, there's more meaning, right? Like there's more purpose. And I didn't want to create any actual real meaning and purpose with these great men that I was meeting. So when I had that conversation of like, oh, okay, maybe now that I understand that not all women are attracted to women, and this attraction that I have felt my whole life maybe means more. And I was like, okay, I'll go try. I'm a very much all or nothing kind of person. So I literally switched the app to women. And because I had been doing it for 2 years, I kind of was like, I can play the dating app game in a way, quote unquote, right? But don't get me wrong. Definitely went on a few dates with women where like the flags were there, but I didn't see it because I was just in awe of the fact that I could be attracted to the woman sitting across from me. And that's really cool.
Right. Can we just push those flags aside and make out?
Exactly. Can we just do that? Because this is really cool. But so then when, you know, I came across, because we met on the app. So when I came across Brenna's profile, it was just kind of like, oh, wait, like this is all the things, and it's a woman, and I'm, you know, really excited and attracted. Like that can happen and all in one. And we totally did that, which now I know. At the time, I had no idea that it was like the typical lesbian thing of like, you know, she traveled 2 hours for our first date, and our second date, I flew to LA to meet her in LA, from Boston to LA for our second date. Now I know that's a thing, that because we just go all in, I guess. But at the time, I just, you know, I was in love, and I've been in love, and it's been great. So yeah, my experience is kind of, you know, a little bit different in that way. So it's fun.
I flew 936 miles for my second date, so you're in good company.
There you go.
I'm asking myself on the plane. I was like, who is this Jill? What are you doing?
I was doing the same thing.
And yet I was like, of course, that's perfect.
I should invest in airline stock. Is that what you're saying?
Oh my gosh. I have every airline credit card out there, but that's an aside. Anyway, so if you come out, get your Frontier card, join Discount Den, highly recommend.
Yeah. I mean, we did get a few TikTok. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, we did get a few questions coming through. I saw Mills asked a while back. She said, when is the best age to tell your child you're a lesbian? Mine is 5. So I don't know how, I know, Carrie, you talked a little bit about the explanation process, the kids and how they received it.
Well, and I have a 5-year-old, so it's not like we've sat down or I've sat down and said it in that way, but it's more about having conversations with what's going on in their life, right? She's very obsessed with marriage these days. She'd come home from school and say she's getting married to so-and-so, or wants to marry her brother, or just all of this. And she's like picking up on Disney princess culture reluctantly. Like, I wish that wasn't the case, but she is. And
Tinkerbell.
Yeah. So we'll talk about, well, what if you married so and so, or what about a girl marrying a girl, and how would you feel if mom dated a woman? And I'll just talk about how that's what I want to do next, is if next person I date will be a woman, and we just kind of talk about it in casual ways, in a way that I can kind of get down to her level and to her world. And it's also just repetitive, because I feel like at that age they kind of need that, especially as she is like picking up all these symbols from society. And I don't want to reinforce that. I want her to see this other world that I didn't see, and especially since that's going to be a part of her life. So that's what it's been like for me. And with my son, who's 3, he gets a little bit of it, but he just wants to marry me. Like, he doesn't get it in those terms. But I think for 5, I think that's what's tended to work. I think as long as I'm always saying something along those terms. I also know my sister, I always appreciated, like, with her kids, like, whenever she wanted to kind of know what was going on with them, it wasn't, do you have a boyfriend? It would be like, do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Or, like, always showing that, because it's just, I don't know, even being gay now myself, it's like I still think in those same heteronormative ways in so many aspects, that I need to break that with how I'm raising them as well, and kind of think through in those terms.
I had a friend from Europe say to me that they've always just raised their kids saying, "Are you interested in anyone?" She's like, "We never gendered the conversation." And I was like, why do we?
Why do we?
But, I mean, I know why we do, but yeah. I like her way. So
yes.
Anyway, sorry, Marina, you were going to say something.
No, yeah, so my kid is 11, and it's only her. And when, like, we started having the conversations, like, honestly, we moved to Boston when she was 2, and moving to Boston, we used to live in the South. Moving to Boston was one of the best things in terms of me learning how to rephrase and being aware of those conversations, and paying attention to the fact that I was, putting gender in things without even realizing, and having so many interactions in, like, life in Boston, where it's way more liberal than from where we were in the South. I started becoming more and more kind of awake to those things when I was having conversations with her. So I've been kind of like setting up the stage without knowing that I was setting up the stage for myself for, like, since she was about 2 or 3, with little things like that. Like, just paying attention to the genders that I'm using, or do I need to use gender in here, or, anytime. And it kind of, as she became probably like 7 or 8, she would just roll her eyes at me, be like, "Okay, Mom." But anytime that it was like, we were watching anything and it was someone proposed to someone, or someone had a crush on someone else, I would always say, "But they could have had a crush on the other person too." Like, or they could be marrying the other, every time, to the point that she just rolls her eyes at me.
She's like, "Yeah, got it, Mom."
Got it.
Check.
Anytime I will say, you can marry anyone you want. That's the line that I would always, she's like, "Yeah, Mom, I know." Like, I got it. So that when I was like, when she was 10, and now I'm like, "So, all these things that I've been telling you, that it can be anybody you want." And I'm like, "So I think for me that is too." And she was like, "Yeah, I know." She was it was the most, like, nonchalant, like, "Yeah, Mom, I know. I figure it out." Like, when I told her I was dating Brandon, she's like, "Yeah, I know." Like, okay,
they're smarter than we give them credit for. They notice way more.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I also think more forgiving too. I mean, because they haven't, especially when they're younger, if they've kind of grown up in an open environment, it may not seem, it hasn't been made weird for them yet,
Exactly.
And I almost feel like, so my kids were 6 and 9 when I came out to them. And the reason why I came out is because we had to explain why we were getting a divorce. And I wanted them to know that I still loved and cared for their dad very much, and that we were going to keep them as our priority. And so I just explained it in terms of love. Well, actually, let me back up. I asked them, "Do you know what a lesbian is?" And my 6-year-old son said, "What's a Lego bin?" And I was like,
I've seen that post.
yeah,
Great.
it's like not a Lego bin, but yeah, Mama's going to Legoland.
I wonder what was going on in his head. Like, that's awesome. Lego.
Yeah, I mean, he used to walk around with his hands like this. He thought he was a Lego, so I get it. But anyways, so I explained to them, like, you know, I love you guys. I have love for your dad, like I love so many of our family members. But when people are in a romantic relationship or they get married, it's a different kind of love, and Mom feels that kind of love for women. And so there were obviously tears, and it was hard, not because of being gay, because of the divorce aspect is what was really the hardest part. But then at one point, my daughter went, wait, so does this mean I could have 3 moms? And I was like, yeah, technically, I guess. And she's like, that's awesome.
Wait, where's the third?
Okay.
Oh, your husband.
My husband's
got it.
girlfriend.
I was like,
I
where's
set
the
them
third?
up too. She's awesome.
Nice.
I love my ex's, the woman he's dating. She's amazing. Anyways, she bought me my copy of Untamed.
Oh, can we
it.
talk about Untamed? Carrie, have you read Untamed too?
Oh, yeah. My
Yeah.
sister introduced me to it after I told her. And yeah, it got me through so much in the beginning. I've been meaning, because it's been so long since I've read it, I've been meaning lately to read it again. And I listen to the podcast all the time. It's great.
Same. Yeah. Were there any other questions, Jill, since you were like doing great at paying attention to the
I saw
questions?
somebody said, have you experienced heartbreak with a woman?
Mm.
Ooh, that first breakup. I don't know about you, Marina. My first breakup was crushing, and at the same time also so necessary. Like, it was one of those things where I think this is because, again, I don't know if you guys did the teenage regression. I totally regressed to being like a teenager when I first came out. And so on like the final time where she had like stood me up or something had happened, I think I put on like Rihanna's I Hate You, I Love You song, and I'm like bawling in my closet like, this is my life now. I can't believe this. It was, I mean, that's embarrassing saying it now, but really, like, that was,
No.
I was so crushed that Catalyst relationship was like done for. And now I was really going to have to enter the wild world of dating. The first person I dated was a friend that I had known for many, many years.
Oh.
And so that was kind of like lesbianing with training wheels on. It was great to like, yes, I'm definitely
Because you knew so
gay,
much
and this
about
is
each
great.
other. Yeah.
Right. But we had it was not a good relationship. It was not a healthy relationship for either of us. And so finally, when we were fed up with things, I was so glad to be done. And at the same time, I've never felt something that was like so gut wrenching because I didn't know what was happening next. So, and then, you know, enter the wild world of dating apps. But I don't know. Have any of you also experienced any sort of like that heartbreak?
I've heard that that's like that first breakup and that real strong relationship is just heart-wrenching. So it scares me a bit because I mean, I've even just had like situationships fall apart and that stuff. You know, I'm like, I feel like I'm super sensitive, so that can be challenging. So it's scary, but I haven't had like a serious relationship yet. So
Melanie on here just
we'll
said the
see.
same thing. Hardest breakup in my life, my first lesbian relationship. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I do not know why. All signs pointed to run screaming, and I was still like,
I think it has to do like this whole idea that there's a connection that happens with two women. I don't know how to explain it, but I keep hearing that is a thing out there. So it's just a deeper connection when to break. Also, like, you know, so I feel like maybe that it goes in deeper, so then therefore it can hurt more.
I was just gonna say, I think also, because I've thought about this a lot, because I've had a lot of friends tell me about their situation going through this and like thinking through coming out later in life and like finally living as your authentic self and somebody actually seeing you for who you are for the first time and invested in a relationship in a way you never have before. It's going to inevitably hurt in a way a relationship with a man never did, because you weren't fully invested in that same way. So I think there's a lot a lot there. And I think there's also that similar feeling of like wanting that first person to be the one, because you are putting it all out there in that way, and you have to deal with a lot of worthiness issues, which I think a lot of us have coming out later in life too. And so I think there's just a lot of that pain of feeling unworthy and dealing with a lot of self-love issues, and just we put a lot into that person, I think, for one. And then also we're showing up as our true self, so it hurts when we're rejected.
Yeah.
Nailed it. And I just wanted to some people are asking about the Glennon Doyle podcast and about the book, and that's We Can Do Hard Things. I think somebody's mentioning, I think Brenna. Thank you, Brenna.
Yeah, Brenna's moderating. I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a few people were popping in asking what Untamed was, and it's Glennon Doyle's
I'm
book.
wondering, do I have it right here with me? No, I moved it. No, I had it right here next to me at one point. It's a great book. If you are, I don't know, if there's any inkling in you that like, hey, maybe there's something here, because there's a lot in the book that it's not just about coming out. So it's a great just self-love and self-realization type of book. I highly recommend it. But Glennon Doyle there it is. She came out later in life. Like she's, learned, I'm not going to do a spoil the book for you. But if you just Google Glennon Doyle, you'll see she's married to Abby Wambach, the awesome soccer player right now. And it's a blooming later in life. Cool. Any other, someone just said that Untamed was the game changer for me. So yes, it was. Yeah, I definitely also read it after, I think I started reading it after I went on my first date with a woman. I was like, oh, I hear this book is a thing. Maybe I think she mentioned it. And I was like, sure, I'll read it. And I was like, oh yeah, I needed to read this book. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
A question from Skilled in Second said, what's the best way to meet people if you're not really allowed to come out because of your job? It's a great question.
That is. I mean, I hear TikTok is a great way to meet people. I don't know.
Dude, it's so wild to me. How many couples are like, we met on TikTok? And I was like, oh.
I know. I keep seeing that too. And then they're like married now, and they met during the pandemic. It's whatever. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool. And I mean, it just speaks to how rapidly our society's changing and how we connect. Because I know I had the same fear, and I had friends of mine who, a lesbian couple who had been together for decades. And I said, how do I meet people? And they said, oh, you'll just meet them in your everyday life. And I was like, no, I'm not going to meet them at the kids' play place. I'm a homeschooling mom. Everyone who I hang out with is a married homeschooling mom. Like, I don't know. Anyways, there were still lesbians there too, though. But I did do like meetup.com was one way that I found some local lesbian meetups to meet people. I didn't have any luck as far as dating goes, but at least it let me be in the community a little bit more. And then obviously living here in Tampa Bay, we have a great queer community. And so our pride events that are happening all the time, I've tried to get involved with different volunteer events, things like that, but it's still hard. So, and Carrie, I think you've got more to say on that.
Yeah, it's awesome. My friend just commented on here, TJ. We met on TikTok. I had a post that I put out a while ago, like I laughing about being an older lesbian, and I mean older in the terms for TikTok. And a bunch of people reached out, and TJ reached out to me, and we've become really close friends. And I've met another person that way too. For me, I'm just trying to build community, I think, even more than dating right now. And that's kind of opening me up to find other people, because similarly, yeah, like I work from home most days of the week, and I work at a Catholic university of all places. So I'm not, I know, right? They're progressive, but my hope is to kind of help them along with some of that.
Be the change.
Yeah. So I'm not really finding that in my day-to-day life. And with kids, it's like, in young kids, I mean, when I have them, they take up so much of my time. And when I'm out and about, yeah, I'm not really running into a lot of lesbians. And I don't always know when they are anyway. So it's in real life, it's not been happening as much. So that is the one thing why I find myself going back to dating apps. But even on dating apps, I put on there that I'm also looking for friends, because I do think having the community, I mean, for one, it's helped me not focus so much on needing to date, and to just growing that community and finding other people who are similar to me, and maybe meeting more queer people through them, hopefully.
And I just thought of I'm a practical person by personality, so I need to give like a very practical answer. I think, and I don't, this is not an ad, Bumble, where the women are the ones that Bumble, you can actually have both men and women that you're interested in. So then that way, for some reason, if someone comes across your profile that you don't want to be out to, they will see that you are also interested, like that you're showing up for men, basically. So, but the men can't talk to you first. You have to talk to them. So you can just safely be there talking to all the women that you want and not swiping to any men.
If only in real life it could be that way, right?
Right?
Right. Wow, that is like super stealth level lesbian. I like that. That's great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
So smart. Yeah. Yeah, that would be tough, not being able to be out at work. I mean, like I said, I'm at a Catholic university and I'm pretty obviously gay in many ways, but even still, like, I made sure to check that before I started, because that was a concern. So that's a lot. That's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
We just got a great question from Mommy2505 who said, would either of you date a woman that is still in the closet?
Okay, so I can start just because I was in the closet in many ways when my girlfriend started dating me, just because I love to hear you guys, it's inspirational to hear your stories about your exes and all of how that's been. My experience has not been like that. So for many different reasons, I was closeted, quote unquote, because of that. And so because I was with someone that was kind enough to give me a chance, because I was having to process through all of that, I think I would have to say yes. Right? Because she showed me kindness, and there was a reason bigger than me in a way there, that she worked through with me. And then now, we can be who we are, and I'll do, I can be able to express myself, anywhere. And that's great. And she kind of stayed through that painful part with me, in the beginning. So my answer would be because of that. Yeah. Who wants to go next?
Mommy2 also added on, if so, how long would you wait for them to come out?
Oh.
And I think that's a great thing to add on too. What I was going to say is that I don't know that I would necessarily have issue with someone being in the closet, but I would want to know, I would hope that they would eventually want to come out, because again, like for me and just what I feel in my purpose and my mission here, visibility and normalization is why I'm here. Mm-hmm. And just living out loud and living truthfully and authentically. So, I would never write off a person just because they were closeted, because there's a lot of reasons for that. But speaking honestly about being in a relationship, I would hope that at some point they would feel comfortable enough coming out too. And that's just and Mommy2, I hope that answer is not coming across as discouraging at all. I think it's going to vary person by person too. Mm-hmm. And what they're seeking out of the relationship. So, Carrie, any other thoughts and emotions?
Yeah, can I just say ditto to your answer, because I feel like that could have been coming out of my mouth. Like I I have that strong feeling that I have that similar purpose. I mean, even to the point where I'm wanting to write about my experience and put it out there. So for me, it's like I'm being pulled in a way that I can't not express who I am right now. So I wouldn't want to be pulled back into the closet. And I don't think that's what you're implying, asking this question. And I wouldn't say no. But I would want to also know that that was something that you were striving to get to, because I want to be able to be open with my partner. And yeah, I'm also willing to work with someone and grow with them, because I know I have a lot of growth to do also. And I think there's a lot I need to do on my own, but I also think there's a lot that can be done with a partner. But it definitely would take me aback at first knowing that. But if I felt a strong connection and it felt like something that could be good, I think I'd be willing to grow with someone. I don't have like an exact timeline on that. I think it would just be a conversation.
Yeah.
39 days and 15 minutes. That's my limit. That's all I got.
And I will say, like, for me, it was always part of the conversation because it was a very finite moment. There was a date that we had to kind of wait for. So from the get-go, that like we knew that there was an end date to that, being in a relationship like that. So, are there any other questions going on? Oh.
Yeah, we got one that says, how do women respond? This is a great one. How do women respond to you having children?
Oh, no, I think Carrie's frozen. Is she frozen for you?
Yes.
She's frozen for me. Oh, no. Maybe it'll work itself out.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so.
I don't know. Did you have any issues with being a mama in the dating scene?
No. She had to leave. Maybe.
Oh.
Okay.
Hopefully she'll hop back on.
Yeah. I need to keep watching so I can add her. Oh, yeah, she's back on. Okay. Inviting her.
Okay.
No, I think maybe it's just, I don't know, when I'm not going to like stereotype women and men and all of that, but I feel like we're a little bit more forgiving to that. I don't know. It wasn't a thing for me specifically. Any of the women that I went on dates with were perfectly fine with the fact that, I had a kid, and most of them that I went on dates with had kids themselves. My girlfriend now doesn't, but she loves my kid and they hang out, and play and hang out together. So it wasn't for me.
Yeah. I did, again, the friend that I will loosely call it dated, she was very clear on the fact that she was not interested in raising kids and the fact that I had young kids. And that should have been like blaring red flag number one. But I was like, she'll come around. They're adorable.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So realistic, I mean, again, and this is just speaking from my own lived experience, sometimes it's fine. And there are also, I mean, it's like dating anyone out there, women or men.
Exactly.
Like, some want kids, some don't. So for some people, it's a deal breaker. If it is to a person, don't try and sell them on it. I mean, I hate to say that, and I see it happen, and it's so heartbreaking because somebody is compromising something that is very important to them. And so even though I know some people have recommended against it in dating apps, I did include one of my profile pictures that just had me and the kids looking off into the distance at the mountains so they could see I am a mom and I do have younger kids. And if that is not something you're interested in, do not swipe on this one because they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
like for me in my dating profiles, there's two things I'm super open about, is that I have young kids. And that I am new to coming out. I have that on there because I know there's a stigma for a lot of people, and I know that's not what somebody wants to, not everyone wants to dive into a relationship with someone who's pretty new to coming out. And I don't want to waste my time if that's the case. And I also, I respect that not everyone wants children. And I think you're totally right, Jill. Like if you're pushing somebody into that, and it's just going to cause more heartache down the line for you and for them and for your kids. So that's a scary thing to do. But I've tended to gravitate towards other people with kids, just because I know they'll get it in a way that someone who doesn't might not. Especially with my kids being younger, they're at that like tantrum age, and there's just like a ton of attention I'm having to give them. But I'm open to anyone who wants to be around kids. I don't plan on introducing them right away. It'll take time. But I would be totally open to someone who doesn't have kids also, that could accept them in their lives.
I remember
that's important.
I remember when I started like setting up when I went into the dating world, and, apps was like, this is, like visualize what you want kind of a thing. Yeah. And I was like, I want someone that's divorced, works full time, and has kids, because then they will understand all of the issues that I deal with, right? Like they'll get all of it. And then I'm happily with someone who has never been married, doesn't have kids, and I'm like, okay, well, here you go. Yeah,
it's like the universe will give you what's meant for you in the end.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm also like open to that too,
Yep.
But for me, like being honest as to who I am in the beginning, it's I think it helps weed people out who aren't looking for that.
Yep. Any more questions?
Yeah, we have some good ones coming through. I keep going like, I need to feed my kids dinner, but hold on, we got some good questions.
We probably should give ourselves like a dead time, because we'll probably keep doing this for hours, and we're
best friends now. We could do this.
I know.
We could chat all day. But Morgan Florakova says, are there any support groups or Zoom calls available for people struggling in the LGBTQ community? I know of 2 groups on Facebook that are fabulous. There's a late bloomer lesbian community that Carrie DeWitt, if you go to, I think it's Coach Carrie or on
like
TikTok.
Kari. Yeah.
Yes, Carrie. But on Facebook, it's the late bloomer lesbian plus community. Fantastic conversations that happen in there. Highly recommend joining that. And then also, there's a woman named Robin who does the Coming Out Late podcast, and she has a Facebook group called Coming Out Late as well. She hosts a weekly Zoom call for women loving women where they can get together and connect. So, Morgan, if you're looking for more of that face-to-face connection, I highly recommend those 2 Facebook groups to have some more one-on-one or group contact with people.
Just listen to Jill. I got nothing. That sounds great.
Yeah, I didn't know about the second one.
I wrote it down on a sticky note.
Robin Douglas.
I want to remember this. So
Robin Douglas, Coming Out Late. Robin, I think, came out in her 50s. So she hosts a podcast now that's wonderful. And then she hosts a Facebook group and a weekly Zoom meetup. And she's fabulous.
Cool. You might see me there.
Yeah. And there was one other really good question, and I lost it. And this may be a good one to end on. It says, how would you help someone to come out if they have doubts about it? That was a hard one I didn't lob you an easy question at the end.
Right? I'm like, we can spend hours on this.
It's lovely, Gemini. How would you help someone to come out if they have doubts about it?
It's such a hard question, and it's so like case by case on how to help. I actually get a lot of people who will message me about this, and I feel so honored to be asked, but also it feels like a lot of pressure, because it's, I need to know what it is that the fear is. I'm still processing and thinking, so if someone else has an answer, go first.
Well, so for it, and I guess the question can be taken a bunch of ways. If somebody's like asking themselves, should I come out? And I think we've all kind of maybe asked ourselves that question at some point of like, should I do this? Is it worth it? What really stuck for me is I was reading Bronnie Ware's book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. So Bronnie Ware worked with hospice people who are end staging at the end of life and asked them if they could go back and do it again, what would they do differently, or what kind of regrets they have. The number one regret was living a life according to what other people wanted and not what was true to them. And so as much as I hate to end this with like a hard thought or a heavy thought, but for me, the fear of knowing that I could be on my deathbed, never having the opportunity in my life to have to be my true self walking on this earth, that fear played over and over in my mind to generate the courage I needed to come out. And then therapy. I so recommend. I went to life coaches. I went to mental health counselors. I did a lot of craniosacral therapy because that integrates the physical body and somato-emotional release, and energetic release, different types of therapy. And then also, if you can find, one thing a therapist told me to do was to write a list of community, of if I came out, who were all the people who would have my back. And so I came up with my list of who that circle of friends was. And that safety net was so important to me in my coming out process, to know that I had a safety net of people there. And that if I came out, there was at least one other person on this planet who would stand there by my side and say, you're okay, and I'm here with you. But it's hard. I mean, I can't lie about it. Like, it was a hard process to go through. I look back on it now and I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know if I could do that again. And at the same time, I wouldn't change anything for the world, because my life is the amount of gifts and goodness that keep unfolding, the beauty that keeps lining up in my life now, just because I'm being honest and living in integrity. I would never give up what I have right now. So that's my word of love to you. I love you, person. You can put me on your community list.
Yes, for both of you. All of us.
All of us, I think. I know. Yeah. And I think that's such a good answer. And I want to add to that something that was strong for me, as well as, living my true authentic self, was being a mom and talking to my kids every day and trying to convince them to do the same, but not doing that myself felt really rough. And it just kind of was staring me in the face at that point. How can I ask them to truly live authentically if I wasn't doing that myself? And that was a big catalyst as well. And I've also, recently I've had someone ask me about, whether it's worth it and stuff as far as where I'm at. And I'm someone who's not in this glorious relationship right now, on the other side being like, yes, because I have this partner and everything's great. But I do still have those amazing moments where I'll wake up and be like, wow, I'm free and I am totally myself and hiding nothing. And that feeling alone makes it worth it for me, even though I still have all these challenges that I'm dealing with in therapy, or, with my life coach, or, just stuff that is really there and tough, because it is a roller coaster. It's not an easy thing to do. It's still worth it, hands down, for that feeling of being free and not hiding anything and just living my true life.
Yeah. Can I just combine both of your answers and say, yeah, that's my answer, because that's perfect. It's that freedom, the authenticity, especially looking at my life through the eyes of my kid, and watching her becoming a preteen and a teen, and the things that I'm telling her, I was like, oh, like, I need to embody those things too. And then this, what Jill was saying of like, what are these things that I want to make sure that I lived my life to the fullest, and can look back and be like, that I lived the life that I was meant to, based on who I was. And the last 4 years for me has been so much of realizing, like, asking specific questions to myself, like, what do I want? What do I need? What makes me happy? What, what, like, just those basic, you would think are basic questions. I was never asking myself those questions. So I didn't even know the answers to them. I didn't know what the answer, like, what do I need? If you ask me that, I'm going to be, I used to get so just stressed about it because I'm like, nothing, I don't need anything. Like, just, don't worry about it. I'll do it. I'll fix it or whatever. So asking those questions to yourself, I think can you sit down and asking those questions, answering them for yourself. And if you don't have answers, which I didn't 4 years ago, it was a light bulb of like, wait, I'm an adult. I should know what I like. I should know what I want. I should know what makes me happy. And then processing through a lot of therapy for sure. And processing through all of those. So, okay. I think we probably all need to go feed ourselves or feed our children. One or the other. Thank you guys so much. We're going to keep doing this if you guys are up for it. We just look out for more messages from me because this was so cool. And I think by the end now, I'm like, now we're friends. I'm not fangirling as much as I was in the beginning, but this is still amazing. So
thank you for putting it together.
I know, this was wonderful. It's so nice to chat with you both. And I'm so grateful to everyone who was hanging here with us today and asked some really brave questions because it's hard. So.
And then for sure, I know a lot of people have followed. I haven't kept up with that, but please say hello. And I'm all about, keep chatting more, about these things on my page if you have any other questions. And I will do a little plug. I am going to continue on these, and tomorrow there's one more live. And Jill, I don't know if you're joining that one too. I don't know what your life is.
I can. That still works with my schedule. So if you want me back for another round, sure.
Yes. And it's going to be with Alora Late Again. I think that's how you say her username. She's so fun. She's joining, and it's going to be tomorrow at 6 Eastern time. I'll be posting more on my website, on my TikTok. But tomorrow there will be another one with Alora Late Again.
Fabs. And thanks to our moderator.
Thank you.
Keeping it all positive. Love it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a good evening. Bye.